some Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth news in terms of like pertaining to Rebirth itself and the future of this series and like the part 3. There was an interview on here, News Network. I want to go over this, talk about it. This is going to get into spoiler territory, guys, so just fair warning. Let's see. Let's go over what's talked about first. What balancing challenges did you face when expanding the world and playable characters from Remake to Rebirth? So Indo talks about, firstly, one major difference is that the number of characters significantly increases within the two titles, so balance adjustments were necessary. Rebirth, a new system was added, the synergy ability and the synergy skills in terms of battle. This had to be done considering the existing attributes of the characters and then readjusting based on those to create those ability skills. Yeah, I mean, and we saw this coming. Like, a lot of us saw this coming at the remake, and not even just at the remake, sorry, after the Yuffie DLC. Like, what they were doing and setting up in that, it was like, oh, it just makes sense that in Rebirth we have essentially team attacks. We have team attacks or team assist type attacks like a fighting game. So yeah, that's freaking awesome. It made sense. What was the impetus for automating the weapon skill system as opposed to how it was used in Remake? So Endo responds with, looking into Remake, the growth mechanics were fewer in terms of player choosing the passive skill for the characters and such. But then Rebirth, this was increased to including the synergy mechanic, as we touched on, as well as the affinity between the characters impacting their abilities and skills, and as part of the overall growth mechanics, right? So all of these were added as new growth mechanics for Rebirth. The underlining mindset in consolidating these systems is, when I guess considered adding all of these individual systems to the title, I thought this would require the players to be more mindful and take time and care to look into each of them. And when thinking of that, I thought the best way would be to consolidate these into one skill tree where all these new changes can be observed through this skill tree, which actually was smart. I like that. Skill trees, if done right, are great, because then you want to have them sort of condensed and make sense to the player and not have all this different shit all over the fucking place and looking convoluted and confusing as shit. So I'm interested to see what they do, if they either change it up or keep it similar in Remake Part 3 when it comes to the skill tree. So next, let's see, of course, Katase-san reports that Remake game sales underperformed. Are there plans to change the console exclusivity window for the next installment of the Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy? And Katase responds with, regarding the strategy of the console release, there's sort of nothing we can comment on regarding that. Overall, we are looking forward to more players enjoying and playing the title, so we wish for that to happen. So I understand he can't really exactly confirm that right now, even though technically, like a while ago, the CEO of Square Enix essentially confirmed we are no longer doing exclusive deals going forward, because essentially that hurt us in the long run. It was not a good strategy. So they're expect Part 3 to be on PC and console day one. Just based on what he's talking about, they finally learned a lesson that, yeah, taking that money originally back all those years ago for Remake at the time was good and seemed all right and seemed like it really helped out, but honestly, it didn't really help out. It hurt him financially. That's also why, instead of Rebirth being like a year deal like Remake was, they went 3 months on PlayStation. So, and they're busy with the PC version. I expect now 16 to kind of go back to 16 in a sense, where that was also an exclusive too on PlayStation and just came on PC. There's no Xbox release for that as of yet. We don't know when that's going to happen. We know Square Enix has a better working relationship and partnership with Xbox, and they do want to put more. I think the CEO said, or no, it was Yoshi P. might have said it as well, or said it instead, or maybe all of them did. But essentially, they want to put more of their titles on Xbox going forward, not just 14. 14 was the start of it, so they're trying to get more of their titles on there for more players to enjoy. So I bet you that, yeah, this is gonna hopefully, like, Remake Part 3 is gonna launch on Xbox, PlayStation, PC day one. I hope. It sounds like they're gonna do that. Let's see, in the May version of the Inside Square Enix, let's see, Indo's-san stated he wanted to give the player even more freedom in the third installment. Even more freedom than what we got? Dude, Rebirth goes fucking nuts as is. What more freedom can you give us? He shares some of the ideas of the staff are implementing to do this. All right, so Endo talks about responding, while I'm unable to comment on granular details of that right at this moment, I believe that instead of the developers or the creators dictating how the players should play along a pre-planned path, so to speak, it's better to allow more freedom and the user's choice to be able to play in their own way that they wish to. While naturally there are challenges to actually realizing that, and when you go into making that a reality, my thoughts are also that for the Final Fantasy series to continue to reinvent itself, to revitalize itself, and stay fresh to our players. This type of constant evolution is necessary in terms of the battle elements as well. So those are the underlining thoughts I had while making that comment. All right, so let's analyze this a bit here, reflect on this. So let's take Remake, for example. Remake, FF7 Remake feels like a Yakuza game in to some degree, right? With its story, with its linearity, with its combat to some extent as well too, like the overtopness of it. And then Rebirth goes from Yakuza to feeling like, at least in terms of its combat, to feeling like a fucking fighting game. Like, let's take Marvel vs. Capcom, for example. Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Like, it had, because you're using all these team synergy attacks, these like team assists, you still have like party members that may not be your active party members, like your 3-1s, but ones outside of her are still technically being active in some way with you in combat at all times, basically. And not only that, you put materia on them, and that materia still levels up. That still levels up. So even though they're not in your active party, they are still contributing in some way. They're still assisting, like an assist character in a fighting game, basically. And not only that, the team synergy attacks as well too help with that. Like, so I feel like what they're going to do in terms of more freedom in part 3, they're probably going Marvel vs. Capcom 3 that shit. Let's see. So in the Ultimania supplement book, it's mentioned that the new trilogy was an opportunity to expand on characters' backstories, add new scenes and details. What new scenes in Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth were you most excited to incorporate into the game? So Hamaguchi responds with, in terms of something that was sort of new in Rebirth compared to original, is that in the original we have that gold saucer date event that everyone is familiar with, and this time we increased the variety of dates you can go on in terms of who you can go on a date with. Yes, very true. Very true, because I think in the OG it was what, Barrett, Aerith, Tifa, and I don't think you could do Vincent, or because I don't know if you could do Vincent. I don't think you could. No, it was like basically Aerith, Tifa, or Barrett were the main three. Whereas in Rebirth you can go on a date with Red 13, Yuffie, Kate Sif. Sorry, I had to think for a second. So like, that's incredible what they did to expand that, and that's just like a nice little extra like amount of content, or increased amount of content, or whatever extra thing they did and went out their way to do. So I believe we were able to answer the players once in terms of increasing the variety in the special event. The characters in Final Fantasy VII are so beloved by its fans, and so in that way increasing the number of characters that you can go on a date with, as well as actual contents of the date, was something that I think was very positively received. Even in the Otakon panel, where we engaged with the community, Kate Sif date was brought up, and that's newly added, of course, during Rebirth, and there were a lot of fans that were very happy and excited about it. Yeah, of course they were. Endo says, my favorite scene within Rebirth is one with Dyne and Barrett. This moment also exists in the original, but in Rebirth this is portrayed in so much more detail, down to the point where we really see the characters' facial expressions. It's very dramatic. True, it is like a heartfelt moment that really gives me a new perspective on everything that happens in this scene. Even though I've done test plays, like the run-throughs of the game so many times, this one scene that I never skip, it's special to me. And you know what? That is so well done. So well done. Now, some will argue and feel like, oh, it's a bit either like too fluffed up, too emotional, too reaching to get an emotional reaction out of players, whatnot. But at the same time, that's that moment of this game, much like in Remake, where, and it involves Barrett again, where in Remake, Barrett has this passionate, emotional, like sad speech and talk when the plate drops And basically, like, you know, Jesse dies and Biggs and Wedge, Jesus Christ, I don't know why the hell I was drawing a fucking blank there. All right, so you have this, you have this scene in Remake where Barrett is going to passionate, emotional type of speech because the plate dropped. Well, actually, Wedge was alive in the remake at that point still. It was Jesse and Biggs that essentially were presumed dead, like that. And no matter what, like, I've beaten Remake like 4 times. That scene always gets me. It got me the most the first time, got me teary-eyed. And then this scene with Dine and Barrett, how emotional that was and impactful that was and how way it was done, that got me as well too. That was another tearjerker in a sense. Now, some would feel like it was better done in the OG, and I can understand why, because it's like, you know, shorter. It's, I guess, more straight to the point in some regards. It's just shorter. And in Rebirth, it's expanded upon. It's maybe dragged on a bit too long, I guess, for some people. So, but I really love it. Now, I've only beaten Rebirth once. I imagine every time I go through it again, though, that scene's always going to get me. Like, it's just going to make me feel some type of way and bring that emotion reaction out of me. So, cutscene director, Hidekazu Mayaki mentioned that Cloud's big dance number in Remake was the most ambitious and challenging. I bet. Was Aerith's performance of No Promises to Keep similarly difficult to realize? Is there another cinematic sequence in Rebirth that takes the crown for the greatest challenge? Hamaguchi says, so actually the most difficult scene in Rebirth, I believe, was Rufus's inauguration parade. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that because that's a lot of characters on screen. Like, from the actual parade itself, the soldiers that are essentially doing the whole, you know, formation and routine stuff. And then you got the crowd in the background. You got the building structures. You got vehicles and other stuff going on. Yeah, I can understand that being the most difficult or challenging. So he says, I'll go into why. First, we had to look for a person that understands parade formations. Someone with that experience was very rare to find. Yeah, understandable. Then we had to find actors who could perform these various sequences. So with both of these requirements, we had to look and have all of them before we started motion capture. Yeah, makes sense. It took a while to find these people. Yep. Interesting story I like to share is that in that scene, all the soldiers, including Cloud, have guns in their hands while they're doing the parade. To mimic this, we created real gun models for all the actors to hold while doing the sequence. But then what happened is the gun models we made were so heavy and was impossible to move, you know, twirling around and doing all those motions. So it became a problem. In the end, even though they made those models, they used umbrellas. Wow, the freaking gun models were heavier than actual guns. That's insane. Do you know approximately how many motion capture actors they needed to get for that scene, since a parade is usually so many people? So Hamaguchi responds with, we had around 30 to 40 soldiers in the parade within the game. We can't fit all those people in a mocap studio, right, obviously. So we had a group of 6 people that would film in various areas doing routine, and then we would put those all together through CG. Yeah, basically just double them over so many times. Yeah. Fans been trying to decode the secrets of the timeline based on the variations of stamps. The Shimmer Dog, can you confirm if there's any more to these different stamps? So before I go into what Hamaguchi says, like, there was an issue, right? In Rebirth, I think they patched out where I think there was, it might have been in Junon. I don't remember exactly, but I think there was an issue where essentially it was the wrong stamp, and then they fixed it to be the appropriate one. And because you gotta think, it's like in the remake, we were like utilizing the stamps as a way to try to figure out like, oh, is this a multiverse or a multi-timeline thing or whatever? And that was playing part in like what the heck was going on in terms of like alluding to the timeline theories, or if it's a multiverse theory thing. And then you have the stamps in this game, and then you have one that's out of place or the wrong one. That's gonna mess with people's theories and thoughts on this. So they didn't want, so they fixed it. But yeah, because the different stamps are important. So when a player goes through playing Remake and Rebirth, it does come to a point where one can have many conjectures about what this means. The reason we included different stamps was to signal the different layers and different timelines within this world. See, different timelines. So real quick, when it comes to my theory of what is actually going on, if it's a multiverse or a timeline thing, I think it's timeline, because we essentially get a confirmation rebirth that Sephiroth, the one that's like the main one truly that's trying to organize and manipulate all this shit, is from the future. We get actual confirmation. We were already speculating that from Remake, after Remake was done, and we're speculating that this has got to be Sephiroth from the future, from Advent Children. This is Advent Children Sephiroth, and Rebirth essentially confirms that. So I don't think it's truly a multiverse thing. I think it's a timeline thing, and we're just have to wait and see what happens with that. We still don't know what this version of Sephiroth's true end goal is. So that acts as a mark for the player to see and say, oh, what's that? So these are shown in each timeline. We would see a stamp, like on a bag of sweets, or it's like a doll in a gift shop. They're put in as little markers or Easter eggs. Exactly, right. What is the wildest fan theory you've seen about the trilogy so far? Oh boy. Sorry, everyone laughs. And Hamagu says, after the panel yesterday, we were chatting with the voice actors over dinner. This exact topic came up. Funnily enough, we were talking about Chadley, which is the character who supports Cloud in Rebirth. And we were talking about how, like, some people think that he's actually evil and will turn out to be the last boss in the final title. Oh my god, that'll be insane. That'd be cute. This freaking Chadley out of nowhere is like, you know, walks up, you know, stomps Sephiroth's head in or some shit, or Genova's head in, like, and just comes up and tells Cloud, like, hey Cloud, I've got some intel. Then dun 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 dun, dun, like the music just kicks in. Oh my, that'd be nuts. But honestly, I don't think Chadley would be a final boss fight thing, even though it's like funny, crazy theory. I could see him possibly being an optional boss fight though, or something, or a boss fight of some kind you may have to go through, just because in Rebirth we find out that Hojo essentially has hacked, or has always hacked, or been in the mind of Chadley in a sense, to keep an eye on the party. So Hojo has eyes on the party pretty much at all times through Chadley, and it's not impossible to think that Hojo essentially corrupts Chadley or does some type of like override program to make him fight Cloud and the rest of the party at some point. I honestly believe that may happen. So Katase says, I don't know if this is something unexpected or anything, and I guess it's not really a specific thing or theory that I can comment on right now, but we do hear a lot of players, different conjectures saying, oh, how much will this story change from original? I do want to comment that I don't think that's how it will be. Yeah, like they've said many times over and over the years that this remake trilogy, this remake of FF7, is at its core going to be the same. They're not trying to take out anything. If anything, they're trying to expand upon and add more. They essentially said they're going to keep everything in there from the original and expand upon it. And basically, we, you know, figured out that Remake essentially is a sequel, and even the devs kind of confirmed that too, that technically Remake is a sequel, and Rebirth is a continuation of that in a sense, of said sequel. And you know, Rebirth in itself doesn't have a ton of like actual true like plot points or plot moving and stuff like that. Rebirth is a lot of just world building and set pieces, and you meet characters that are you're going to get attached to or get close to, that are going to essentially help you out or be of some importance, you know, in the third game. And then they're setting up all this stuff, much like the first game was setting up a lot of stuff as well too, but because like the Rebirth is a sort of going out into the world. We're exploring the world now. We're not in this linear ass Midgar, like this small ass Midgar game. We're actually in the world now. We're exploring. We haven't seen everything yet, but they're introducing so much to us, and it's just a lot of world building, characters, setup, and foundation, things like that, to where the actual true story bits are like, say, for like, I would say like the last hour or so, or like the major key plot points. I think, or say for like the last hour or so of the game. Obviously, there's some before that as well too, you know. But yeah, and then it does another thing that it does like not copies, but it does what Remake does in a sense where it has a ending that is controversial, confusing, and initially pisses off a lot of people. Me, I was more so confused. I wasn't really pissed off, aside from them not confirming certain things, as well as just giving me more questions and confusion. Well, I wasn't really pissed off about that. it was just like, oh, I was just hoping they would confirm certain things that they didn't confirm. We still don't know if it's a timeline or multiverse thing, but I feel like it's a timeline more so than anything. It's Sephiroth from the future. We got that confirmation. We don't know what the hell's going on with Aerith. And that Aerith, not Aerith character, like, I don't think that's Aerith that's in Cloud's head, but they do expand upon it. They dig really deep into Cloud's psyche and like show a side of Cloud where he is really getting dark. He cannot accept Aerith's death. In the OG, it was not like that at all, dude. It was not like that at all. So like Aerith dies in the OG, and it's not talked about or really addressed until like way later on. It's like the characters essentially go like snowboarding and do this other shit after she dies. It's like, what? And in this game, Cloud, the way they write Cloud is he can't accept Aerith's death. And he's just got his own little delusional thing going on, basically. Everyone else is like reacting normally to the situation, except Cloud. Cloud is not reacting or acting normally to it. He's also has the black materia, which is possibly like the one ring from Lord of the Rings and corrupting him, potentially. And I feel like that whole Aerith in his head is Jenova and Sephiroth fucking with Cloud. Honestly, that'd be a great way if they did it like that. It makes sense if they do it like that. We always kept the original in mind, and I don't think it's going to be a storyline that will betray the fans of the original game. But also at the same time, it's been 27 years since the release of the original Final Fantasy 7. There are these things that we feel we can only do now in the remake project that can bring a new happiness. Exactly, a new sort of feeling of satisfaction to the players playing this game now 27 years later. What this will entail exactly is something we hope players will experience soon. Yeah, like, and they've said many times too, like they didn't want to do a one-to-one remake. This is not like, for those that want a one-to-one remake, like I still feel like you're just not gonna please everybody. You would have pleased, sure, you would have pleased those OG fans that want a one-to-one remake of this game that didn't add anything. You would have pleased them, but here's the thing: if you're trying to bring in new people to it, though, I don't think that would have made them happy. I mean, it's impossible to make everybody happy. And I knew Remake 1 and Rebirth, like the way those games ended, was gonna be controversial, contradicting, like a little bit piss people off, basically. And they did. And so, but they're done for a reason. They were done in a way to where, okay, yeah, sure, it's gonna be confusing and it's gonna piss off a certain section of people, but I feel like they have a plan, and they're gonna make it to where the part 3 ending is gonna make sense. It will make everyone, if not 90% maybe of the fan base, fucking happy. All right. I think that's what they're going to aiming for, and I think they can get it. Katase-san, are there many plans to produce a physical version of Queen's Blood, given how enthusiastically received the card game is by players? Yeah, Queen's Blood is fucking amazing. So they have been asked for this a lot. It's in high demand. So Katase says, actually, when we had the new hires come into Square Enix to get people excited, they created their own DIY real physical version of Queen's Blood on their own. There's only one in the world. Unfortunately, we cannot share this information of physical retail version of the game with the rest of the world yet, but this in-studio version does exist. And it's not just the cards, but they made like a stage. They shared a picture of the backdrop they made using 3D modeling. Oh, that's amazing. Like, look at this shit right here. That is so fucking cool. And Queen's Blood, yeah, like, oh my god, it's so good. It's like the best card game in Final Fantasy games. And the original, I would say, best card game, or at least my personal favorite card game before this one, was Triple Triad. And it essentially is similar to Triple Triad, but way fucking better. And you can make some broken ass decks. Oh my god! Once you unlock the right cards, you can make some broken shit work. So I really if they do make this an actual card game, to be hype as shit. I honestly would love it if they would like make like a spin-off video game of it that's maybe free to play or something like that, and just let people have fun with that on PC and console. You know, then again, they might turn into a mobile game. Ugh. But I mean, I could easily see that being, you know, you can like, from a business standpoint, I could see them just making a shit ton of money off that. Make it free to play, and you can just keep adding cards to it, you know, from different like lore of FF7. We got FF7 Ever Crisis. You got like the backstory of shit of like Sephiroth with that. You can add like characters and monsters from that shit. Advil Children, Dirge of Cerberus. Like there's so much. There's so much you can add to that and just keep adding to it. So why not? And then you can just do guest characters from like other FF games too. On top of that, not just have it be FF7. You can do guest or crossover type events or characters as cards. Like you can have Titus, Zidane, you know, monsters from different versions of FF games, right? Come on, it writes itself. Which mini games were the most challenging to implement, and were there any favorite games among the staff? Would there be any new mini games to look forward to in the next installment? So obviously they're going to do Queen's Blood again. They're going to have to. They're going to have to expand upon that. Queen's Blood's my favorite mini game. Outside of that, if I didn't have a stupid ass controller before, I have a better one now for PS5, but if I didn't have a shitty ass controller, I would say piano is probably my other favorite. The piano. But due to how that's implemented and due to how my controller's working, I just when I replay Rebirth with my better controller now that doesn't drift or anything like that or have weird issues, I hope I have a much easier time with it and just enjoy it more, and that'll be like actual true enjoyment. Aside from that, Fort Condor was good, but it didn't feel like as good as the Yuffie DLC version of Fort Condor for some reason. Like I don't know what the hell, like it just felt like they nerfed it a bit or made it like restrictive or something. I don't know. Gears and Gambit sucked ass. 3D Brawler sucked ass. Didn't like that shit. Chocobo Flying was cool, but it was, I don't know, it was fun. It could have been better. Chocobo Racing was really freaking fun. Oh my god, Chocobo Racing was so cool. G-Bike as well. That was freaking awesome. Like, I would say probably my top 3: Queen's Blood, Chocobo Racing, G-Bike. Yeah. So as to which one was most challenging to implement, I would say Queen's Blood. Of course, within the various game mini games included in Rebirth, there are some where a player might play once or a few times, but then there are also ones like Queen's Blood where they would play over and over again throughout the course of the entire game. Yeah, like, to add on to this too, you know, I was one of those assholes or whatever when I was playing a game where I'm just like, Queen's Blood was like a driving force of what made me excited to go to a new area, a new zone, a new towns. Like it wasn't necessarily the main quest. So I was like, I'm looking around like, okay, where are these Queen Blood players, huh? You know, who thinks they're hot shit around here? I want to fucking take them down. Like, I was trying to like what's the next card I can unlock type shit, you know? So it was just great. I was like one of those type of people, like many others, that just were looking for that, trying to see who the hell I could play in Queen's Blood. Let's go. Seeing Queen's Blood was the type of the minigame I knew that we had put time and effort into creating something that would be satisfying to play in that way. While it was challenging to work on this, I think hearing the very positive feedback from the players who said we succeeded in making this. Yeah. And for the ones that were the staff's favorite besides Queen Blood, I think Chocobo Racing was the one that was a big favorite. Understandable. Yeah, it's fucking amazing. Since you don't really need any prior understanding of rules, right? You can just jump into it and it's very tactile. I suppose I heard a lot of devs enjoying it. In terms of Rebirth, we aim to provide this mini game experience where there would be varieties of it in which players can find their own favorite. I think we succeeded in doing so for Rebirth, but we don't look to do exactly the same going into the next title, since we want to continue offering this very fresh experience. So as opposed to just increasing the number of mini games available, focus is on proving mini games like Queen's Blood or Chocobo Racing, where a player would want to come back to and play over and over again throughout the course of the game. So it sounds like for part 3, they're going to have less mini games and focus on the best ones from Rebirth, like Queen's Blood and Chocobo Racing, and just improve those significantly, and other mini games. So yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So essentially, if you want your like Remake, didn't really have mini games. Remake was like a Yakuza game in a sense, and it's very linear. There was side quests to do and stuff like that, but wasn't really much mini games to do, or not really anything outside of, I would say, I don't even know if you call this mini game, but more just like the battle arena shit. You had the battle arena, and it comes back in Rebirth as well. You got a battle arena shit you can do too. It's technically like a side thing slash mini game thing. So, and that's really fun. I love the battle arena shit. Oh man, that's so fun. Like, I would say that's out in Remake, at least that's like probably the only, if not main minigame thing or close to minigame thing. Whereas in Rebirth, we got a shit ton. And then part 3 is gonna scale back on some of those mini games, have less, keep the best ones. I would honestly bring back Fort Condor and just make that shit better. Like, make it how it was to a degree in Remake Intermission, where with Yuffie DLC, and just make it better though, because it felt, I don't know, it felt weirdly just weirdly not as fun as the Yuffie DLC version. I don't know what happened with that. Which boss battle mechanic was most satisfying to pull off, and which was most challenging? So I love, Endo says, I love all the bosses. It's so it's hard to choose, but if I were to pick one, it would be the Galleon Beast. Interesting. With Vincent, I think this was very unique in that it was a boss battle that required players almost switch or flow between action-based and strategy-based battle. You would go in between these approaches and have to maneuver between them. I think this was very satisfying, and we were successfully able to implement this type of battle. Yeah, because in the OG, you didn't fight Vincent. He was an optional character you could pick up. You did not fight him at all. In Rebirth, they make him a fucking boss fight, and I was surprised and happy. Oh man, so freaking fun to fight Vincent. And then you got the Snake. The Midgard Stormer battle took more time to work on because this is a boss also present in the original game. It's in the minds of the players. It has quite a presence, but also comes up in the very early stages of the game for Rebirth. So I was conscious of striking this balance between it being not so hard that the players finds extremely challenging to defeat this boss, but at the same time making it hard enough so that it's impactful and puts up a fight. Yeah, that was a fun fight actually. Didn't find it too difficult. I think what I did was I didn't know, like, I knew it was coming at some point, possibly because we've seen it in the trailers or whatever leading up to the game that, like, yeah, or I think there was some gameplay footage leading up to the game that, yeah, you could fight it. So I knew it was coming at some point. Didn't know if I'd be ready or not, but I was basically doing everything I could before getting to that point. Like, I did all the side shit, I explored and anything like that. So I think for me personally, I didn't have a super tough time with it because I was at a point in the game where I was leveled up enough that I could deal with it, and I beat it in one try. So the end of Rebirth remakes one of the most famous cutscenes in video game history for new audiences. Some reactions post the game included confusion over how to interpret the new development of this scene. What reaction was the staff hoping to garner from players, and what message did you want? Or do you have a comment for players who feel this new version of events is confusing or unsatisfying? Yeah, very good question. Very good question. So Hamaguchi responds with, when I was playtesting this game and went through run-throughs countless numbers of times, I thought the players who were going to play Rebirth were going to have various perspectives and thoughts about the ending. We had already announced from the beginning that this remake series would be a trilogy, so when we considered releasing 3 titles, of course there will be some time between releasing 1 into 2 and 2 to 3. Also discussed how we want this community to interact while they're waiting for the next installment, right? Kitase-san and I were also discussing this, but we thought it's very enjoyable for the community to have something very worthy of intense discussion, like what is really going on here. That was something we wanted and expected going into creating this scene. In terms of the experience we anticipated and also desired, I think we are satisfied in that there are both negative and or positive reactions to the scene. Well, they got what they wanted with that, yeah. It looks like it's about to, okay, this is the last thing here. Also to add to this and offer an alternate perspective when discussing the scenario with Nomura and Nojima, we were also talking about how in the original, where was it at? Sorry. On the original, it's showing Cloud's perspective, his feelings and immense loss of losing someone that you love and having this hole in your heart. And considering how to depict this in the remake series, we also thought about not only expressing this loss of someone who means so much to you, but also this sense of a person experiencing loss. Being unable to force yourself to forget this person and almost like an inability to accept it. Struggling with the possibility of losing someone. So that was something we wanted to show in Rebirth. Right. And it, you know, it makes sense why they went that route after hearing this, because you gotta think, right? how did Cloud react? And this is both in the OG as well as, actually, yeah, OG and the remake technically. The way Cloud reacts and how he handles Zack's death. Zack died in front of Cloud, and then his mind is like, I'm gonna take on the persona of Zack in a sense, without accepting or acknowledging that Zack is dead or Zack was his friend. He just blocks that shit out mentally. He doesn't fully accept it in that manner either. He creates his own like weird delusional version of himself where he's like essentially portraying what Zack was supposed to be, but he's basically emo Cloud at that point, or it's like an emo version of his former self or whatever, because he cannot accept the death and loss of Zack. And here we go again, where he has a friend he cares about, he loves, die. He's lost. This is the second, arguably, no, probably the third, because technically his mom died originally, right? This is like the third most significant person in his life that has died in his life. And he cannot accept that she's died. And they're running with the whole, you know, can't trust the narrator, can't trust the like Cloud's like perspective, like you can't trust the main character point of view type of thing. You can't. Unreliable narrator. Like Cloud's an unreliable narrator. They're going with that route, which makes sense because they want to keep the player engaged, wondering, thinking, pondering, speculating, contemplating, you know, theorizing what the hell might happen. They don't want to like shed the full light on what the hell's really going on yet. They'll do that in part 3 because that's how they get you. Regarding original, its first disc ends with that huge loss. I recall some people not even wanting to continue playing and change over to this, right? To disc 2 because they didn't want to play anymore because of that. It's such a huge feeling of loss and despair, but I do think there's a synchronization of feelings between the players and Cloud, struggling with how do I deal with this feeling? The feeling of loss and how a person struggled to take that on was happening. Imagine the players of Rebirth would also have that synchronization feeling. Yeah, it hit hard. I knew it was coming, but the way it's handled is, I argue, in some ways it's handled better because from a, you know, sort of reinvention or expanding of the story and how it's written and how it's told, it is done in a better way because the way Cloud handles her death in the OG, like I said, it's just kind of sort of brushed off a little bit and doesn't come back too much later. And it's like, bro, what the hell? Nobody talks about it. Nobody tries like showing emotion about this and that. So here, the characters, or at least Cloud, the characters and Cloud actually are showing actual emotion in a like what you expect to be a somewhat realistic way or a natural way of what a person would feel or show emotion in or response to. So it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. Because I didn't do a, like, I was going to do a video on this on my own theories of what was going to happen, but I was paying attention to what other people were talking about, what other people were theorizing, and it just leads to a dead fucking end. So I didn't do that because like we are just left with so many questions and uncertainty to an extent, and I'm excited because of it. We know they're going to stick to the core story still, well, add some stuff in, add some cool shit in for part 3. They're going to, you know, continue keeping certain mini games in there, expand upon them, make them better. Part 3 also, we're going to get the high wind, so we're going to be doing, you know, we're going to have the freaking airship, right? I argue we're going to have airship battles, and I don't just mean fighting ultimate weapon, because that's going to be a given, right? We're going to be fighting the weapons. We're going to be going on like this freaking globe-trotting adventure using the airship. You know, that's just going to be a given. We're going to, because we already had a couple of the weapons show up in Rebirth. We didn't actually fight them like the way we're supposed to, so we're going to do that in part 3. And I argue we're probably going to get some actual airship battles between us and Shinra. That may happen, that may not happen. I would hope it does. I think it'll be a lot of fun, exciting stuff there to add new element to it. I don't know what exactly it'll do to expand the combat system in terms of like team synergy and stuff like that. That would have to expand that, the skill tree, you know, expand the builds of characters some way. We lost Aerith. You know, it'd be crazy. Oh my god, it'd be nuts if the Oh my god, it would be crazy if they have like Aerith only have team synergy attacks with Cloud, but only Cloud can see the shit. I don't know if they'll go that route, because technically we're down a member, right? But we're gonna have Vincent and Sid be playable characters in part 3. So they'll be, we lost one member of the party. We're down to 6, right? But we're gonna get 2 more and be up to a total of 8, if I'm not mistaken. I feel like there's gonna be some crazy team up moves, assist moves in part 3, and it'd be funny, maybe not entirely funny, but it'd be crazy if they still kept Aerith in there, not just in like cutscenes and background lore and backstory shit, and just Cloud, and Cloud being the only one to see Aerith because he's just like insane. He's super sad and can't accept her death and whatnot. And so it'll be funny in combat if he's the only one that can still see Aerith and she's actually contributing still in combat. I don't know if they'll do that, but that'll be some crazy shit if they do. They might. I mean, Aerith is still gonna be a character that's still gonna stick around in some capacity, because as Rebirth ended, Cloud is the only one that can see Aerith, but that's not actually Aerith, from what I believe. That's Sephiroth, Jenova fucking with Cloud's head, or the Black Materia fucking with Cloud's head. Aerith is still gonna be around in some way in part 3. Cloud's gonna be the only one that sees her. She'll probably be in some other cutscenes and maybe some other background shit that's gonna add more lore to it, whatnot. She'll probably show up in some way in the final battle as well. I just feel like that's what they're gonna probably do. Yeah, because technically, even though she died in Rebirth, she still showed up in the final battle in the Rebirth. So, and then we still got Zack. Like, we still got Zack, and what the hell's going on with him? And what could possibly be happening with him? I know people were initially like wondering like, what the hell with this Untold Journey and stuff like that from the original part 1 remake, not original, but the part 1 remake. It ended with like, you know, the Untold Journey or Unknown Journey Begins, whatever. And so people were confused, like, wait, what? They were pissed, like, oh, they're just gonna change this up. It's not the core story. I think that Unknown Journey that is more specific to Zack more than anything at this point. And even you notice in Rebirth, because they were having fun with Zack in terms of what, like, Zack being alive, this version of Zack that's still alive, in this unknown like timeline or story, whatever is going on. And that's where the Unknown Journey is mostly, while be it the end, like 5 to 10% of Remake and Rebirth are like new shit overall, because the endings of both games. And then Rebirth, Zack that's still alive, right? And then the fact that in the original timeline, Zack is supposed to be dead. And the fact that, the one thing they didn't really address, because they didn't really have a chance to, is the fact that Cloud and Zack team up, but Cloud like couldn't really address or process like, wait, you're fucking alive, dude? What the hell's going on here? They didn't have time to show the character processing that, because they had to, we're in the middle of a fight with Sephiroth. And so, but it was like fucked up, because Sephiroth's just like, motherfucker, I'm tired of you at one point. It's like banishes him to the Shadow Realm or some shit. So I'm wondering what the hell, what's gonna happen to Zack. Is Zack in the original timeline, or is he somewhere else? You know, because Sephiroth has that power where he can just send you to whatever timeline he wants, I guess, or multiverse he wants. So I don't know what's gonna happen with that. I would love it though. I still love it. I mean, they kind of did it where it was like a team up thing against Sephiroth. I want Zack to come back. He teams up with Cloud against Sephiroth. I still want them to bring back Genesis in some way, have him team up with Sephiroth, have it be a 2v2 battle, Cloud, Zack versus Genesis and Sephiroth as part of the final battle in part 3. That'd be fucking sick, in my opinion. But hey, we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. That's my speculation. That's my hopium of what could happen, what I hope to happen with that. I still want Genesis to come back and we fight Genesis, or at least make him an optional boss fight. At least do that. Make him the fucking hardest fight in the game or something. Like, do that. If you're not gonna have him be part of the main story, have him be like a side boss that's optional you can unlock. That'd be fucking sweet. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens though. I'm excited nonetheless.